the first question is really, how much interest do you see from your from CPQ customers in visual solutions?
Thanks for having me. And actually quite a bit, and it's growing. And the way I would categorize it is CPQ is evolving, right? The whole world's evolving. There's a desire now to, we call it barrier-free selling, right? How do you minimize barriers? And as CPQ solved like product complexity for highly complex products, now the next barriers are, well, can I see it? Can I see the dimensions accurately? Can I actually experience the product? And that becomes the next unlock in terms of CPQ. And not only, by the way, for new sales, this also comes up for part sales. So obviously, like, help me sell my product via CPQ. The buyer can see it. They can actually get inspired. You can use words like inspiration, experience. Oh, that's what I like. I buy faster because I can share it with others. But now that I own the product, hey, this broke. What part should I buy? I'm kind of jumping a bit ahead. But parts obviously is solved. You can find parts, you can buy them. But if you look at all the implementations we've seen with CPQ, there's such a very long parts list, a very indescript bill of materials. Whereas you really want to know, like, is that the part broken out in this bill that I'm getting? And so anyway, we see a lot of demand for that.
Excellent. So then I think what's also interesting is to see what CPQ vendors or commerce engine vendors you work with. I would guess, obviously, Salesforce and also Logic.io. Anyone else that you want to mention here?
I would say with all the major ones, and Frank, the way I would say that is the customers are coming to them to ask for solutions. And the reason I say major ones because CPQ is quite established, and there's a conversation now with the customer, hey, how do we make this better? Right? This works well, let's say. What's next? And the conversation's shifting a bit, right? Kind of what I mentioned before in the boardrooms, which is not so much like CPQ specific or e-commerce specific. It's how do we become easier to do business with? And we've talked about this for 20 years, Frank, I'm sure, but now it's real. Now it's real, it's solvable. So what we're seeing is the CPQ vendors are like, hey, I have a conversation piece. What you don't want to be is someone without an answer who's like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Or customers come to us directly saying, hey, I need help to make this better, or should I look for alternatives, right? And our position is like, hey, what you should do is really bring your products to life. That's the next step. Right? You haven't done that yet. People can experience them. You haven't done that yet. So make sure you do that first. So that's kind of how we get to work with almost everybody.
Excellent. So then you also recently made an interesting announcement about the modular configurator. Tell me a little bit more about this. What does it do? What does it mean for customers?
Right. So you'll see us announce a lot of, the platform's a platform, lets you experience products in many different ways. The modular configurator is actually perfect, like it's platforms, it's in the platform itself, helps you experience products in space. And so well, we do it already with us today, but even better. So think of, for instance, in consumer products, it's furniture, but it could be in high-tech manufacturing racks. How are racks together in space? What are the blades in that? In manufacturing could be various products being together in space. And so it's really a quantum leap. We do it today, but with the modular configurator, it makes it even easier on the administration side to basically, create rules and administer like spatial relationships.
Excellent. So that's one trend, right? So, but there are probably a couple of other trends. Was wondering, what do you see in the market? What do you see your customers asking you for?
Right. And I would say the trend is, I touched on it a little bit, the trend is really help me, I would say, differentiate. Help me show the products, help me show my customers the full product, because the COVID boom affected everybody, but that's kind of over. We all know that. I didn't want to talk about that, but now it's back to normal, right? Which forklift should I buy? What's the right compressor? Right? Are you easy for me to find the product? A lot of B2B buyers are like, I know what I want. Are you making this barrier free for me? Can I find what I want? I want to buy a part. So I think a trend we've talked about, but now I feel like in the boardrooms where we meet with executives, there is a decision now going to be made by customers, which is equal products, better experience wins. And so I think they're bringing that into their vendors now, one level below. And I think, again, it's getting really murky. I see less and less talk about very specific swim lanes. It's about what do we have as a stack to get us there? What can help us do that? And less so about, different ways to do it. Like we need to do it. And what I see is whichever, stack provider really understands it and jumps on it, I feel like they're in the driver's seat. The ones that aren't, I think they're kind of being, they're not with the new trend. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing. I think it's very exciting because it's unlocking a lot of potential for these customers.
Excellent. And you mentioned earlier that you wanted to show something. So you want to go ahead and do that, or?
So here's actually a great customer of ours. If you can see it, Blown Valve. And I share LinkedIn because it's easier, but here's essentially, you can see a barrier-free buying experience, which allows you to essentially, the rules are the rules, but visualize very complex wash basins. And actually, and so that really not only allows you to obviously give the customers what they want in seeing it, experiencing it, but also you can inspire with it, right? There's a new group of buyers or personas that can get involved, architects, right? Recommenders that are now like, hey, I understand we work with our dealer, we get a quote, but ahead of time, I can really, really understand, get inspired, play with it. I'll get that exactly what I'm buying here, but it's not just part numbers. And another good example is also actually great joint project with our partner Logic. The Logic handles all the complex products rules. There's many, and we are the visual commerce platform. And again, here's a really great example. When you have a complex product, you bring it to life, you let, words that come into mind now with B2B manufacturing, which are co-creation, inspiration, experience. And at the end, yes, there'll be a bill of material that's very detailed and complex, but it's very different from, we call this barrier-free, from, hey, here's a bill of material with a price, which essentially quote is. That was awesome 10 years ago, but that's like, if I get that from someone and I have this experience, which by the way, we integrate those experiences, right? That's the main message. So if you have a CPQ solution, let's bring that together. And then you have this, and that is kind of where it's very obvious. Like I don't need to explain it as a buyer. You just gravitate towards that. It's not something you have to explain. That's easy. That's really the main thrust of it. Once you see it, there's no going back. So for anyone out there, like thinking about their implementations, their customer experience, just know that it's really accelerating towards you either meet the customers, the buyers, they know what to buy, right? Give them what they want. Don't be in the way, or you are in the way and you may never get to your product, right? Your product differentiators may never hit. So that's kind of an example of that.
That's excellent. That's actually pretty cool because I think that was the first time that we didn't just have the regular video stream, right? So, but the little demo on the side. So that was very cool. So the first one, Matt. So last question over here. What, from your point of view, should customers, so visual configuration customers, do before they select any visualization software from your point of view? What would help you the most to get the project started quickly?
Yeah. Well, let me talk about quickly in a second. I think that the biggest leap that customers that are not in the consumer world, right, they have to make is picture perfect, beautiful. I use these words on purpose because some of the audience like, oh, that's not me. Yes, it is you. Makes a difference. Here's the example. If you make a product like that beautiful barn from Ulrich Barnes, and your product management spends a lot of time thinking about the construction of it, they think about how these materials you're picking. You make a compressor, you make a high-tech piece of equipment. If you care about that, make sure it shows up beautiful, because at the end of the day, and beauty, I don't mean artistically, at scale, and there's a lot we can talk about, because that's what it really is, your product with all its options and experience. That is real, because if you make it, show it. The reason I say that is the leading global brands we work with, they get that. And what they realize is that when you have, the only thing people experience are these digital versions of their products. It's like a real deal. You go to a showroom, you see it looks better colors, you thought about it. If you don't show it here, you will not get the eyeballs. But then also make sure the vendor, so you have understanding of that. So our background's VFX Hollywood, but we married this up with a complex product structure. So what you don't want to do is do a beautiful art experiment. It has to be visual commerce, so it leads to a transaction. So my recommendation is make sure you pick a platform that knows both. And then the third one is that they are future proofed. There's a lot of innovation behind it. So once you put all this product information in, you kind of keep going. The advice for setup, I would say, really make sure that the vendors you're choosing actually understand you, have done projects of your scale, because scale does make a difference. Technology-wise, it's one thing to have one product with 4 colors. It's another, like what we do, 100,000 options, millions of options at scale for parts, and then deliver these projects. So I would say that's probably the apart from that, the other technology, like, hey, are you really, do you service, companies like me?